Hi, good evening. My name is Amanda Villalobos. I am a student at the Grand Canyon University. I am recording a quick video for a class that I'm taking currently, the elements of intercultural communication. To start, the topic reading that I went with was Shakespeare in the Bush by Laura Bohannan. And to give a brief summary of the main idea of the article is how cultural differences can affect a lot of things, especially in this story specifically, relaying a story that we have read several times growing up here, at least in the school. So essentially, this American went over to Africa, and he is right now sitting with a group of elders, men from the tribe. And he's trying to explain the story of Hamlet. During the story, he gets a lot of rebuttals from these elders, these tribal men, because they just can't comprehend, not even, I guess, so much around the story itself, but more the cultural differences that are in the story. So to identify an ethocentric bias inside of this article, at one point in the story, which I honestly have never read the story Hamlet, so I was learning as I read through this article. So in Hamlet, Hamlet's father dies, and Hamlet's uncle goes on to marry his mom, to take on the role of Hamlet's father also. Now, here in the United States, that is very much taboo, to marry your brother's widow and try to take on the role of the head of household. In other cultures, like in this African culture, this tribe, that was an honorable thing to do. That's actually something that's normally practiced with them. So that rebuttal kind of created a little bit of tension between the man who's telling the story and the elders, because he thought that they were making Hamlet to be out to be a bad guy, and he didn't like that. While they agreed that was the best way to handle his father dying. His brother should have been there to step up and marry his widow and take on the role as a father. So it's just one ethnocentric bias within the article. The story, so to reflect on how the story challenges the notion of one's cultural values are normal or best. So I'm going to refer back to that same point. Marrying your brother's widow to them was normal or best, because it's honorable to them to take on that responsibility, because it's a form of taking care of your family here in the United States. So it's not because it's almost like, oh, you're trying to replace them, but that's not the case. That is not how other cultures view that. They view it more as an honorable thing to take on that responsibility to help your family. So to consider a specific, unique norm or tradition in my own culture, I guess I'm going to go ahead and lean on my Hispanic culture. I'm Hispanic. A big Hispanic tradition is the quinceañeras. For example, when a young woman, a teenager, when she's turning 15, that is a coming of age, and it's usually celebrated in a very big, I guess, a ceremony. It's predominantly a Catholic thing. You do go spend some time in mass, and then you have a big party, similar to like a bar mitzvah that the Jewish culture practices. It's a very big, expensive party. For the most part, not everybody does have a big, expensive party, but it's pretty normal to have a big, expensive party. It's easily $20,000 or more between the dress, the court choreography, cake, food, the halls. So that's a normal tradition that the Hispanic culture practices. Even here in the United States, not a lot of people would agree with doing that because a 15-year-old is still considered to be a minor. It's still a child. I wouldn't view her as an adult. And to kind of not blow all that money away, it's kind of not normal to have such a big party for a 15-year-old. So to propose a best practice for communication across cultures by incorporating insights on how worldview and perception influence interactions. So best practice for communicating, when you're communicating with somebody from other cultures, I would propose being open-minded. I wouldn't be so closed off or hard-headed or stuck in your ways. This is how my culture does it. And you kind of see this in the article from both sides, when the author's having a hard time just getting the story across because they just cannot comprehend that the cultural aspects, like why would they do that. And even Hamlet's bride to be, the issue with his almost father-in-law and almost brother-in-law, like that, the way that they would rebuttal, there was a lot of I guess you would say pride in there was no respect in a sense of letting him finish telling the story. They were not going to accept the story, even though, I mean, it's a story. What are you going to do? So I would take things like a grain of salt. I would not be so hard-headed or so stubborn when you were talking to somebody from a different culture. Be very open-minded because everybody is raised different. There's different values, different beliefs. So even if somebody tries to rebuttal what you're saying and you're with somebody from a different culture, it's just different. Different doesn't mean bad. So definitely be open-minded and be patient, and don't be so quick to defend your own cultures. And to relate a personal experience or an observation of cultural misunderstanding. Compare this to an example from the reading. Highlight how different worldviews influence perceptions. So I can't think of a personal experience, but an observation of a cultural misunderstanding would be a lot in this story. When Hamlet had set out to defend his father, he wanted to get revenge for the death of his father against his uncle. There was a cultural misunderstanding here in the United States. That's something that it seems reasonable to somebody from the United States to want to get revenge for your parent or anybody from your family at that matter. This was a cultural misunderstanding to the elders from the tribe. They don't believe that he should be disrespecting or having kind of any ill will towards an elder, even if that elder did kill his father. They believe that that's something that his father's friends should handle, just because of the fact that Hamlet was younger. His stepfather was his senior. That it was a lot to do with respect, I guess. That was very much taboo. So that's a big misunderstanding. And also the same thing, like I mentioned, the big issue about his uncle marrying his mom, his dad's brother marrying his brother's widow. That misunderstanding, that's a misunderstanding again, because to this tribe it was honorable, and to the American it was taboo. So the misunderstanding is, was it honorable or not? It's for, they're not gonna agree there. That's the misunderstanding, I guess. To conclude, the most significant lesson or idea that I gained from this article, or the article regarding the impact of worldview and perception. So the most significant lesson that I learned is being open-minded, especially dealing with people from different cultures. I guess I do have that kind of experience. I do have a friend from my church. She's the first lady of the church. She's Filipino, and sometimes there's just social cues that some people might think are offensive. Being open, but I understand. She is not from the United States, so dealing with anybody from a different culture, I would definitely say be patient and be open-minded. Don't try to be right, and don't try to convert somebody into your culture. It's not. I would say it's not the same thing as converting somebody to a Christian. Culture is different. It's just a human nature kind of thing. And I guess that's it. It does say that I have to prepare this assignment according to APA style guides. It doesn't really specify if I'm supposed to write this or not. If I'm supposed to write an essay, I am assuming that it is just a video. So when I cut the video here, I will make a document and put the link in there. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your patience. Have a great evening, and God bless you.